Well, the city marked International Holocaust Remembrance Day this morning at City Hall.
As we witness an alarming rise in anti-Semitism in Canada and around the globe, especially since the Hamas atrocities in Israel on October 7th, it's more important than ever for us to recognize the critical lessons of Holocaust history as we commemorate the victims and honor the courage and resilience of survivors. After suffering unspeakable horrors and losing so much, survivors rebuilt their lives.
Today is a day for communities around the world to join together and say, never again. Never again can the evil of anti-Semitism and the terror of Holocaust be allowed to persist. It's not lost on me that the death toll in Israel in October is the largest number of Jewish civilians that have been killed since the Holocaust.
So you're running that. Good.
Well, Holocaust survivor Rose Lipzig shared her story at this morning's ceremony and spoke about the importance of education.
It's very important that we educate our young people to know what was happening in the world, and that we should, and since October the 7th, the horror of my childhood is right back in the midst of my life. And it's very difficult. I'm turning 95 next month. And I hope I still have some time to tell it, but it's getting harder all the time.
International Holocaust Remembrance Day is marked every year on January 27th, the anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz-Birkenau in 1945. And for more on Holocaust Remembrance Day, we're joined live by Deborah Lyons, Canada's new special envoy on Holocaust Remembrance and combating anti-Semitism. Thank you so much for joining us in studio.
Thank you so much, Jamie.
I know this is going to be an eventful week for you. I know that you had something earlier today and something on Saturday. How are you going to be marking this solemn occasion?
Well, we had an event yesterday, actually, with RCMP from right across the country. This incredible event today at City Hall with Mayor Chow and the Simon Wiesenthal folks. And, of course, you saw Rose. And then, of course, tomorrow in Ottawa, we will be with the Prime Minister and many others from the Jewish community, reminding people of the Holocaust and also reminding them of what is happening in Canada right now and why it is so important to make sure that we are well educated on the Holocaust and that we hear the stories of the survivors.
You recently traveled across Canada speaking with communities about the rise in anti-Semitism. You also recently traveled to Israel. Talk about what you experienced. What did you hear? What did you see? And what are people telling you about their concerns about this sharp rise in anti-Semitism?
Well, I traveled across Canada because I wanted to be with the community across Canada during this incredible time, and certainly since October 7th and this huge spike in anti-Semitism. What I found, of course, is that people are afraid and they're feeling lost. They're hurt. They never imagined a Canada like this. So what they expect is that leaders right across the country are going to come together to help deal with this incredible, unprecedented situation we have in Canada right now. In Israel, of course, what I found was a community of people, all Israelis, Palestinian Israelis, Jewish Israelis, all Israelis coming together to deal with the incredible conflict they're facing. You
talked about kind of these unprecedented times that we're dealing with right now, and I think it's important to highlight, what's happening in our city. We just got the latest hate crime statistics from the chief of police, and I want to be very clear, all the groups that are identified on this list, it is abhorrent, it's horrific, and all of these alleged crimes should be investigated fairly and equally. But take a look at some of the numbers. 353 reports of hate crimes last year. That was an uptick of 42%. The Jewish community, which makes up 4%, accounted for 37% of all of these hate crimes, 132 of these incidents. That is more than if you were to add up the group that's number 2, 3, and 4 on the list. What does that tell you about the situation here? And as your role, where do you even start to try and combat and tackle an issue of this magnitude?
Well, it certainly tells us that we have a serious problem of anti-Semitism in Canada, one that we had never expected. And you can see it by the incredible spike after October 7th. So clearly something was there that was latent that we need to deal with. We've even seen an increase since, frankly, consecutively since 2020. So what do we do about it? We have to bring leaders across the country together. We have to deal with Holocaust education, not just Holocaust education, but also educating young people on contemporary anti-Semitism, what has been happening here in Canada. Secondly, we really have to work, and I've been here in Toronto meeting with the cabinet ministers in Ontario to talk about what's happening on the university campuses. I've been meeting with presidents. We've got to move our university campuses from one of a place of incitement and intimidation to actually back to learning and civil discourse. We have to look at social media very seriously, and the federal government will soon be tabling legislation on online harm. We've got to make sure we're working with the major platforms on this. Of course, law enforcement as well. And I have to say, I've just finished meetings last week with the Chief of Police in Peel, the Chief of Police in Toronto. I'm really impressed with the work that they're doing. I think we're seeing law enforcement stepping up now within the framework of the legislation they have to work with. But in the end, this is for all leaders across the country, and frankly, it's for all Canadians to tackle, because this is about our country, this is about our society, and it's certainly about our fragile democracy.
Hey, Deborah, this particular International Holocaust Remembrance Day is going to be especially difficult for many of the survivors, because for the first time in about 80 years, many of these survivors are witnessing the sharpest rise in hate towards the Jewish community since they saw the rise of Nazism in Germany and Berlin in the 1930s.
Right.
And the hate that these survivors are witnessing in our streets, in our schools, in politics, in the media, in social media, this is something that's not new to them. They've seen this kind of behavior before. And the fear right now in the Jewish community is that things are going to get a lot worse before they get better. You just talked about some of the things that you want to do. The question is, do you have the resources? Does the city, does the country have the resources to address all of the things that we just talked about?
Well, resources are always an issue, let's be clear. I mean, I even hear that from law enforcement, that they have to borrow one another's people just to deal with some of the issues they're facing. Look, we're going to have to make sure we have the resources. And it comes back again to the commitment, because this is a moment for Canada to address a very serious issue that we're facing. It's going to require all three levels of government. It's going to require community leaders and faith leaders, and most certainly our education leaders. So we're going to have to get the resources to do what needs to be done. I have a small team, but we're a multiplier force, and we're going to continue to work across Canada. This is my 5th trip to Toronto, and I will be here often, because this is where the largest group of our community lives. But also it's a place where we're seeing a lot of activity that we really need to address, as we'll continue to do across Canada.
And lastly, when you look at the hate crimes against the Jewish community, LGBTQ2S+, the Muslim community, what is your concern if this hate goes unchecked?
Oh, you know, Jamie, when I came back from having been abroad for 13 years, including in Israel and in Afghanistan in senior leadership positions, what I said when I looked at North America was, we needed to deal with hate speech. We needed to deal with polarization. We needed to deal with this rise of hate that is happening in Canada and in the U.S. It is a true threat to the kind of society we are trying to create for our children. The work that we've done for the last 50, 80 years to build human rights, to build a society based on laws. So it's a time. It is a time for Canada to stand up and say, we've got to come out of this a better Canada. It's not going to be easy, and there's a lot of hard work to be done.
Deborah Lyons, Canada's new special envoy on Holocaust Remembrance and combating anti-Semitism. It's a pleasure to meet you. Thank you so much for stopping by today.
See you again.
Thank you.